I was reviewing tenant applications at my home office when my brother Marcus called. You need to sign the closing documents, he said without preamble. Dad's selling the duplex on Riverside. Your signature needs to be notarized by Wednesday. The duplex on Riverside. The property I'd purchased in 2015 with my first year-end bonus from the architecture firm. The building I'd renovated myself, learning plumbing and electrical work through YouTube videos and bruised knuckles. The investment my father had called adorable when I'd shown him the deed. Marcus, I own that property. Solely. Yeah, well, Dad says it's always been family property. The buyers are paying $680,000. Your share is $170,000 after Dad takes his management fee. He paused. Just sign the papers, okay? Don't make this difficult. I hung up and pulled my property file from the cabinet. The smell of old paper and ink. The deed felt heavy in my hands, official and real. Emma Rodriguez, sole owner. Purchase date, March 2015. Purchase price, $340,000. My phone rang again. Mom this time. Emma, darling, we need you to come to the title company tomorrow. Just a formality, you know how these things are. Bring your ID and sign where they indicate. Who are the buyers? I asked. A lovely couple from California. Cash offer, no contingencies. We're so fortunate. She lowered her voice conspiratorially. I've already picked out the boat furniture. Coastal Interiors has the most beautiful teak pieces. I called my attorney instead. Sarah Chin had handled my business contracts since I'd started acquiring rental properties 4 years ago. She answered on the second ring. They're trying to sell your property without your consent? Apparently they've scheduled closing for Friday. Who's handling escrow? I don't know yet. Mom mentioned a title company. Find out which one. I'll file an emergency injunction, but I need specifics. She paused. Emma, do you have all your ownership documentation? Everything. Deed, title, insurance, tax records, mortgage statements. The property's been in my name alone for 9 years. Good. Gather certified copies of everything. We're going to need them. I discovered the escrow company's identity through the county recorder's website. Someone had filed a preliminary title report for 847 Riverside Avenue. The escrow company, Pacific Trust and Title Officer assigned, Jennifer Huang. I called Pacific Trust directly. Ms. Rodriguez, Jennifer Huang said when I reached her, I was actually planning to contact you today. There's a discrepancy in the title chain I need to resolve before we can proceed to closing. What kind of discrepancy? The sellers, Robert and Patricia Rodriguez, have represented themselves as the owners. But when I pulled the county records, your name appears as the sole owner of record since 2015. There's no transfer, no deed, no documentation supporting their claim. Her voice was carefully neutral. Did you authorize this sale? No. The silence lasted 3 seconds. I see. I'll need to inform all parties that closing cannot proceed until this is resolved. I'm also required to report potential title fraud to our compliance department. I understand. Ms. Rodriguez, I should mention, your parents have already signed the purchase agreement. The buyers have deposited $68,000 in earnest money. The wire transfer for the remaining $612,000 was scheduled to process Friday morning. $612,000. Mom's boat furniture suddenly made more sense. The ghost ledger. I opened my laptop and created a spreadsheet I'd been mentally compiling for years. Title: The Cost of Being Invisible. Entry 1, March 2015. Purchased duplex for $340,000. Worked 83-hour weeks for 6 months to save down payment. Called Dad to share the news. His response: That's in a rough neighborhood, sweetheart. You should have consulted me first. Cost: having my first major achievement framed as a mistake requiring his wisdom. Entry 2, July 2015. Spent $47,000 on renovations. Learned plumbing, electrical, carpentry. Dad visited once, walked through in 15 minutes, said, "Cute project. Let me know when you need real guidance." Cost: 3 months of work dismissed in 15 minutes. Entry 3, December 2016. First full year of rental income. $43,200. Mentioned it at Christmas dinner. Mom patted my hand. "That's nice, dear. Your father's been managing properties for 30 years. You'll learn. Cost. My expertise erased by her timeline. Entry 4, April 2018. Refinance to access equity for second property purchase. Dad asked for the loan details, then spent 20 minutes explaining what I'd done wrong. Didn't ask about my plans. Didn't acknowledge I'd built $180,000 in equity in 3 years. Cost. Being treated like a child playing with adult tools. Entry 5, June 2019. Property appraised at $520,000. Invited family to see the improvements. Dad walked through, said, "Good bones. I always knew this area would appreciate." Cost. He took credit for my location choice he'd originally called a mistake. The ledger grew to 53 entries. A decade of achievements reframed as luck, borrowed wisdom, or temporary stewardship of what truly belonged to them. Jennifer Huang called back within 2 hours. "I've spoken with the buyer's agent and your parents' representative. I've informed all parties that closing is suspended pending resolution of the ownership dispute." She paused. "Your parents' attorney is demanding we proceed. He's claiming some kind of family trust arrangement." "There is no trust. I can provide 9 years of documentation." "Please do. I'll need certified copies of your deed, all tax records, insurance policies, and any mortgage documents. Also, Ms. Rodriguez," her voice dropped slightly, "I should mention that your parents signed seller disclosures under penalty of perjury attesting that they own the property free and clear." Perjury. The word hung in the air like smoke. "I'll send everything today," I said. "The evidence archive." I spent 4 hours assembling the complete paper trail. Original deed recorded March 2015. Title insurance policy, $340,000 coverage. 9 years of property tax statements all in my name. Mortgage documents and payment history. Refinance documents from 2018. Insurance policies, all listing me as sole owner. Rental agreements with tenants, all signed by me as landlord. Bank statements showing rental income deposits. Receipts for all repairs and improvements, totaling $73,400. County assessor records showing continuous ownership. Total documentation, 427 pages. I sent certified copies to Jennifer Huang, Sarah Chen, and kept one set for myself. The call from Dad came at 9:47 p.m. "What the hell did you send to the escrow company?" His voice was tight with rage. "You're sabotaging a legitimate sale. I sent proof that I own the property you're trying to sell. That property has always been family property. You've just been managing it. I purchased it with my own money. My name is on the deed. Only my name. You wouldn't have known about that property without my connections. You wouldn't have qualified for the loan without my cosign. You didn't cosign my loan, Dad. I qualified independently. I have the mortgage documents. You're being unreasonable. The buyers are threatening to sue. We could lose the earnest money." "You could lose more than that," I said quietly. "You committed fraud when you signed those disclosures." He hung up. The procedural cascade. Day 1. Sarah filed an emergency motion for injunctive relief, preventing any transfer of the property. Judge Robert Morrison granted it within 4 hours. Day 2. The buyer's attorney contacted Sarah. The buyers wanted out. They'd been told the property was owned free and clear by a retired couple. Learning about the ownership dispute and potential fraud made them uncomfortable. Day 3. The buyers formally withdrew. The purchase agreement was canceled. Their $68,000 earnest money was returned. Day 4. Pacific Trust's Compliance Department launched a formal investigation into the transaction. Jennifer Huang's report documented the complete ownership timeline and my parents' false representations. Day 5. My parents' attorney, Donald Reeves, called Sarah requesting a meeting. "Perhaps we can resolve this without litigation. Your clients attempted to sell property they don't own," Sarah said. "They signed legal documents under penalty of perjury making false claims. What exactly do you propose to resolve?" The meeting never happened. Day 6. I received a certified letter from Reeves. My parents were claiming I'd verbally agreed to transfer the property to them in 2015. They had witnesses, my Uncle Frank and Aunt Diane, who would testify to this. I'd never had that conversation. Uncle Frank and Aunt Diane had been at the same Christmas dinner where Dad announced we had acquired a property, but I'd never agreed to anything. Day 7. Sarah deposed my uncle and aunt. Under oath, their story fell apart immediately. So you heard Robert Rodriguez say they'd acquired a property? Sarah asked. Yes, Frank confirmed. Did you hear Emma Rodriguez agree to transfer ownership? Frank shifted in his seat. Well, not in those exact words. In any words? She didn't. She was there. She didn't object. Silence isn't consent to property transfer, Mr. Rodriguez. Did she ever say, I agree to give you my property? No. Diane's deposition lasted 12 minutes. She admitted she'd never heard me agree to anything. Day 8. I filed a formal complaint with the State Attorney General's office regarding the fraudulent sale attempt. Day 9. The AG's office opened an investigation. Day 10. Reeves called Sarah again. My parents wanted to settle. They'd sign a document acknowledging my sole ownership and agree to pay my attorney's fees. $18,000 so far. If I agreed not to pursue criminal charges. No, I said when Sarah presented the offer. Emma, you'd get acknowledgement of ownership and full reimbursement. They tried to steal $680,000 from me. They committed fraud. They would have succeeded if the escrow officer hadn't been diligent. I paused. They need consequences. Sarah was quiet for a moment. All right. I'll convey your decision. Day 11. The AG's office completed its preliminary investigation and referred the matter to the county prosecutor for criminal charges: fraud, attempted grand theft, and perjury on official documents. Day 12. My parents were formally charged. Arraignment scheduled for 3 weeks out. Day 13. Marcus called. You're really doing this? You're prosecuting Mom and Dad. They tried to steal my property. It's just a building, Emma. It's family. If it's just a building, why did they try to sell it for $680,000? He didn't have an answer. Day 14. Mom left a voicemail. I could hear her crying. Please, Emma. We made a mistake. Don't destroy your family over this. I saved the voicemail but didn't call back. The plea agreement came 6 weeks later. My parents pleaded guilty to attempted fraud. Sentencing: 2 years probation, $25,000 fine split between them, full restitution of my attorney's fees, now $31,400, and a permanent restraining order preventing them from making any claims on my properties. The prosecutor wanted jail time, but I told him probation was sufficient. I didn't need them in prison. I needed them gone. 9 months later, I stood in the kitchen of the Riverside duplex. My tenant had just moved out and I was considering whether to renovate again or sell on my own terms. The property was now worth $740,000. I'd added 3 more properties to my portfolio since the lawsuit. 12 units total, all in my name alone. Mom's boat furniture was never purchased. They'd used the $50,000 they'd saved for the down payment to cover legal fees instead. Marcus sent occasional emails asking if I'd reconsider the restraining order. I never responded. There's a particular freedom in watching consequences arrive with the precision they were always meant to have. Not revenge. Just the mathematics of cause and effect finally balancing. The duplex still stands at 847 Riverside Avenue. The deed still bears my name alone. The sale my parents scheduled never happened. From the property I fought to keep, my empire continues to grow. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday. Certified mail from the county recorder's office. Inside, a deed transfer notification for my oceanfront condo at 4750 Coastal Drive, the property I'd purchased 3 years ago with money from my tech startup exit. The property now apparently belonged to my sister, Madison. According to the transfer date, the deed had been recorded 6 days ago. I'd been in Singapore closing a consulting contract. I hadn't signed anything. I called the county recorder's office. The clerk pulled up the file. Transfer recorded on the 15th. Notarized deed. Grantor signature. That's you, witnessed and stamped. I didn't sign that. Pause. The system flagged it actually. Signature inconsistency alert. Your file's already been forwarded to our fraud investigation unit. They'll be contacting you within 48 hours. My hands went cold. Not from fear. From the calculations running through my head. My family had committed real estate fraud. Documentable. Prosecutable. Irreversible. I hung up and opened my safe. Inside, every property document for the condo. Original deed. Title insurance policy. Mortgage payoff statement from when I'd paid it in full last year. And my signature cards from 3 different banks. Samples I'd kept specifically because I'd watched my family operate for 32 years. The patterns were always the same. Take first. Justify later. Expect forgiveness because family. I photographed everything. Uploaded it to encrypted cloud storage. Then I called my attorney Marcus Chin. They forged your signature on a deed transfer? His tone sharpened. Don't contact them. Don't warn them. Let the system work. I want to know exactly what happens next. County fraud investigation interviews the notary. They'll verify whether they actually witnessed your signature or if they rubber-stamped a document. Either way, your family committed felony deed fraud. If the notary participated knowingly, that's a separate charge. You'll need to file a police report, provide your signature samples, and cooperate with the investigation. Timeline. Investigation takes 2 to 4 weeks. Then it goes to the district attorney. If they prosecute, and they will with this much documentation, we're looking at arraignment within 60 days. I thanked him and sat with the information. My sister Madison was 29. She'd been planning a destination wedding in Turks and Caicos. $85,000 for 150 guests. My parents had been complaining about the cost for months. About how Madison deserved her dream wedding. About how I had more than enough, and should help family. I'd declined. Told them my money was mine. That I'd worked 90-hour weeks for 7 years building something from nothing. That family doesn't mean free bank account. They'd smiled. Nodded. Said they understood. Then they'd stolen my $740,000 condo to fund a wedding. The math was simple. Sell the condo or take a home equity line of credit using fraudulent ownership. Either way, wedding funded. And I'd probably never even notice because I traveled constantly for work, only using the condo 3 weeks a year. Except I had noticed. And the county recorder's fraud detection system had noticed too. The ghost ledger. I opened my laptop and created a spreadsheet. Title: The cost of being there. Item: Christmas 2019. Parents asked to borrow $15,000 for roof repair. Never repaid. Never mentioned again. Cost: $15,000 plus interest plus the word borrow, losing all meaning. Item: Madison's car down payment 2021. Just $8,000 to help your sister get reliable transportation. She drove it to Coachella 2 weeks later. Cost: $8,000 plus my definition of reliable. Item: Every family dinner where they discussed my money, my properties, my luck, as if I'd won a lottery instead of working myself into burnout. Cost: self-respect. Refund: unavailable. Item: Dad's investment opportunity in 2022. $25,000 for his friend's restaurant. Restaurant closed in 8 months. These things happen. Cost: $25,000 plus the realization that my bank account was their plan A, B, and C. Item: This moment. Realizing they didn't see a condo. They saw Madison's wedding venue. They didn't see fraud. They saw family helping family. They didn't see me. They never had. Cost: everything. Refund: not wanted. The spreadsheet showed $48,000 in documented requests over 4 years. The emotional accounting showed something that couldn't be calculated. The cumulative weight of being viewed as a resource, not a person. The origin story. I remember the exact moment I decided things would be different. I was 24. My startup had just been acquired for $3.2 million. My share after taxes and investor payouts was $890,000. I'd worked every day for 3 years. Survived on ramen. Slept under my desk. Built something real. I called my parents to share the news. My mother's first words: "That's wonderful, honey. So you'll be helping Madison with her student loans now." Not congratulations. Not pride. Not even curiosity about what I'd built. Just, what can you give us? That night I sat in my empty apartment and made a decision. I would build wealth. Real wealth. Protected wealth. The kind they couldn't touch, couldn't claim, couldn't redefine as family money. I bought the condo 6 months later. Put it in my name alone. Told no one the price. Let them think it was a small investment property. But they'd researched it anyway. Found the property records online. Calculated the value. And decided it was theirs to redistribute. The system works. The county fraud investigator called on Thursday. Detective Sarah Pacheco, Economic Crimes Unit. Mr. Thompson, I've reviewed your case. The signature analysis is conclusive. The deed signature doesn't match any of your banking or legal documents. Additionally, the notary, Rebecca Hartwell, has admitted she notarized the document without you present. Your father told her you'd already signed it and just needed the notarization. What happens to her? Notary license revoked. Possible criminal charges for fraudulent notarization. She cooperated fully once we showed her the signature analysis. And my family? I need you to come to the station tomorrow. Bring your signature samples and any communication about the property. We'll take your formal statement. Then the case goes to the DA's office. Given the property value and the premeditated nature, they researched the property, prepared fraudulent documents, involved a notary. This will likely be prosecuted as felony forgery and real estate fraud. I arrived at the police station at 9 a.m. Friday with a leather folder. Inside, signature samples from 6 different sources spanning 8 years. Property documents. Text messages from my mother 3 months ago. Madison's wedding is in 6 months. We need to discuss family contributions. My response: I've already declined to contribute. Please respect that. Her reply: family doesn't work that way. Detective Pacheco reviewed everything. Her expression never changed, but I saw her jaw tighten when she read the text messages. They told you no. Then did it anyway. Yes. Have they contacted you since the deed was recorded? No. They don't know I know yet. She nodded. The DA will want that. The continuing concealment shows consciousness of guilt. The formal statement took 2 hours. Every question precise. Every answer documented. When I left, Detective Pacheco walked me to the door. Your family is going to be arrested within 2 weeks. They'll call you. They'll apologize. They'll beg you to drop charges. Can I? This is felony fraud. The state prosecutes. Your forgiveness doesn't enter into it. She paused. They stole a $740,000 asset using forged documents. That's not a family dispute. That's a crime. The revelation cascade. The call came 11 days later. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. My father's voice shaking. We need to talk. There's been a misunderstanding about the condo. The police came to the house. This has gotten out of hand. Call me immediately. I deleted it. 6 more calls that day. My mother. Madison. My aunt. Each progressively more panicked. Madison's message. They're saying we committed fraud. You know that's not what happened. We were helping you manage the property. This is a misunderstanding. Please call the police and explain. Helping me manage. The property I owned outright. Paid for in full. Had never asked for help with. I blocked all their numbers. Marcus called that evening. Your father's attorney contacted me. Wants to resolve this privately. Offered to reverse the deed transfer and pay your legal fees. And I told him the deed's already been voided by court order. The legal fees are irrelevant. And the felony charges aren't negotiable. He asked if you'd write a letter to the DA asking for leniency. What did you say? I said I'd ask. But I'm not going to push. This is your call. I thought about the ghost ledger. About being 24 and hearing "what can you give us?" instead of congratulations. About every time my money was discussed at family dinners like it was community property. About the text message, "Family doesn't work that way." No letter. The system can work without me interfering. The consequence cascade. The arraignment was 3 weeks later. I didn't attend. Marcus represented my interests as the victim. My father. Charged with felony forgery, real estate fraud and conspiracy. Bail, $50,000. My mother. Charged with conspiracy and fraud. Bail, $50,000. Madison. Charged with receiving stolen property and conspiracy. Bail, $25,000. Total bail, $125,000. They posted it using a bondsman, 10% cash required. $12,500 they didn't have. They borrowed it from my aunt who called me 18 times. I never answered. The preliminary hearing revealed more details. They'd planned it for 4 months. Researched how to forge deeds. Practiced my signature. Found a notary willing to cut corners. Listed the condo with a realtor who'd already found a buyer at $725,000. Enough to fund Madison's wedding plus give my parents $150,000 for helping coordinate everything. The buyer had been 2 days from closing when the fraud alert stopped everything. Marcus forwarded me the court documents. The prosecutor's case was airtight. My family's attorney was negotiating a plea deal. They're looking at 3 to 5 years if they go to trial, Marcus explained. Plea deal would probably be 18 months with restitution and probation. What restitution? Your legal fees. Property damage from the fraud on your title. Probably $35,000 total. I thought about that number. $35,000. Less than I'd given them voluntarily over 4 years. But this time it wasn't voluntary. It was court-ordered. Enforceable. The scorched earth ending. 6 months later the case concluded. Plea deal accepted. My father. 14 months county jail, 3 years probation, $15,000 restitution. My mother. 12 months county jail, 3 years probation, $12,000 restitution. Madison. 400 hours community service, 3 years probation, $8,000 restitution. The wedding was canceled. The venue deposits, lost. The guests, notified via mass email that Madison wrote from her court-mandated community service at a homeless shelter. I received the restitution payments monthly. $875.43. Automatically deposited. I donated every payment to a legal aid organization that helped fraud victims. I sold the condo 8 months later for $780,000. Bought a different property in a different state. Told no one the address. My family sent letters during their sentences. Long letters explaining their perspective. How they'd been trying to help. How I'd overreacted. How family should forgive. I returned every letter unopened. Returned to sender, stamped in red ink. The last letter came from Madison after her community service ended. The envelope was thin. Inside one sentence, I hope you're happy now. I read it once. Then I did something I hadn't done in 2 years. I smiled. Because happiness wasn't the point. Freedom was. They taught me that family means shared resources. I taught them that resources have owners. And owners have rights. And rights have legal protections that don't care about blood. The condo was sold. The money was invested. The legal precedent was established. And the door was closed. Not with anger. Not with sadness. With something simpler and cleaner. Finality. They'd wanted to transfer property. Instead they'd transferred themselves out of my life permanently. The deed was recorded. The case was closed. The signature was mine. And this time it was real.